afternoon, friends. Stephen Benoon here with Israeli News Live on our Patreon channel. And we're going to be looking at Mount Graham, the place where the Catholic Church has their telescope, very oddly named telescope at that. We're going to get into that, though, a little bit more here as we go along, because I wanted to look at this from the aspect that the Vatican knows where the binary system or Planet X or Nibiru really is. One of the things that I'd heard early on was that Planet X travels within the ether. And that's one reason why the United States has a very difficult time of finding it. But could it be that the Vatican, by putting their telescope on Mount Graham, are able to peer in another dimension? Keeping in mind that the ether is like the fourth dimension, so to speak. It is a dimension where demonic entities live and travel, etc. But it's also a place, and I should say both good and evil spirits can travel. But it's also a place where, as I've been told, that Planet X actually is. And that's one reason why you don't see it so easily. Now, we hear things like infrared telescopes, etc., and that's one of the reasons why they can see it. Well, the United States has infrared telescopes, and they don't seem to know for sure where it really is. Why is it then that the Vatican has that edge on us? Well, maybe there's more to the scientists that are involved with the Vatican than there are with the United States scientists. After all, the getting into looking into space with telescopes, the Vatican had the upper hand even on that information long before we did. And so they, against the wishes of the Hopi and Indian nation and other Native Americans, built their telescope and observatory on top of Mount Graham. We're going to touch into this subject today. I think it's a subject you'll find very fascinating. Let me kind of start it with a clip of this video right here. Arizona Mount Graham demonic portal.
That somebody has told us that the Vatican has priests stationed here in these mountains who are doing research on space and even other inhabitable worlds.
So I'm a Jesuit priest, but here in Tucson we have a research base of the Vatican Observatory.
No, we are not doing anything strange. We're really doing science. We are not trying to find aliens that we could evangelize.
In an intellectual sense, of course, science and doctrines of the world's organized religions are completely incompatible. They have been for hundreds of years.
I find it very possible to both believe in stars and a creator.
What I think is happening is that we are somehow in this very strange dialogue, leading us, inviting us.
Taught by the same teachers.
And the guy here with the horns, which could be rays, right next to the gray alien, he's got horns or rays coming off of his head. Mm-hmm. You see that at Valcamonica in Italy.
Yes, you do.
All kinds of different places. And again, pointing to the idea that these could be luminous or radiant beings that they're portraying.
And so the question is are they radiant beings? What are they? Who really knows? But my point that I want to get at more so has to do, are these guys, are what we're dealing with really in this particular video here? Are we dealing with the fact that the Vatican has the technology to be able to know where this Planet X, this mysterious Planet X is at? And I say this too because one of the big concerns that I'm having as of right now is that the changes of things that are happening in the earth are happening so rapidly. It's becoming quite shocking. I want to play a little bit here from Stefan Burns' video here, where he's talking about the different things that are happening from the sun that is rippling on the earth, causing massive earthquakes. I was told this long ago, years ago, in fact, that the way you know that this system is getting really close is because of all the strange weather anomalies that'll just kind of go off the charts, including that of the sun itself. Let's listen into this little clip right here.
The rupture, that's interesting. It's not like it's never happened, but at that depth, that is certainly interesting. But that does mean that the effects would have been blunted coming to the surface, because it had to propagate first through 67 or 66 kilometers roughly of material before expressing itself at the surface. So not too many people on these islands here, and it is, located some distance away from them, and it had to come up from depth. So I can't imagine that there's much concern for this. And also because it was a deep earthquake, very unlikely to have triggered any sort of tsunami warning, or more likely, an actual tsunami. That is most common with very shallow earthquakes that are oceanic and high magnitude. That's kind of the combo. High magnitude earthquake just below the surface can cause a big uplift and drop, and therefore that big wave of water that goes out in all directions very quickly. So a big release of energy, but not in a way that really affects us. So thank you, Mother Earth, for giving us a big earthquake and not in a big hot spot for humans or life for others. That is good news. We can watch, this is a really cool graphic. We can see how the seismic energy propagates out from that magnitude 6.7 and hits the North America seismic network. So this is going all the way across the Pacific Ocean before eventually it hits the seismic network in North America. You can see these waves start to come in, and here we get the main surface waves rippling through like this. And here we really see them hit California, and then we see them hit the rest of the United States. So really nice motion up with that red, and then motion down with the blue. So you're actually getting a displacement of the ground with this energy. With like a microseismic wave, these are very, very minor displacements. We're looking at the vertical displacement here. But with big earthquakes, a lot of people, they'll live through like a magnitude 8, 8.5, 9. People live through those, experience those, and they'll see the actual waves like going down the street towards them. Like the ground itself becomes fluid with that increased energy in it, because
And that's amazing in itself, because that's what Dr. Steve Pigeon described to me. He was in the Alaskan earthquake of a 9.5, and he said the ground literally looked like a wave doing this here. And the reason we brought that up was because of a dream I'd had many, many years ago, where I was in Tennessee. I was on the northern side. I was on the where the northern side of Mississippi and the Tennessee state line are at, somewhere in that area there. I was there, and there was such a massive earthquake. People were fleeing, though, from the south going north, trying to get away from the coastlines. And then I didn't know what was going on, and someone said, "It's an earthquake coming." And suddenly, as the earthquake began to shake the earth, I watched the ground look like an ocean wave. I didn't think that was possible. But according to Dr. Pigeon, it was. And now you hear also from Mr. Burns here saying the exact same thing. Yes, it is very much possible. And then we have all these floods, like here in Texas. And I know a lot of people want to say weather weapons. I do know there was cloud seeding going on, but we're having these weather anomalies all over the planet. Earthquakes, rains, storms. In fact, I've been told here in Texas by Texans, I'm not from here, so to me, I just love it. I mean, the last time I was in Texas, it was nothing but 105-degree temperatures in Dallas, right? And here we're here in the middle of July, and we're having 85-degree temperature days and stuff. It's just like so nice, and the weather is nice, and you got nice breezes, and people are telling me this doesn't happen in Texas this time of year. I was also told that where it's supposed to be hot, it'll be cooler. Where it's supposed to be cold, it'll be warmer. All these things would happen before this binary system comes. Now, so let's go back. Let's take a peek at this. I want you to look at it a little bit. I believe this is Tom Horn. I get the guys' names mixed up a lot of times. Him and the other guy that were writing the books together did some amazing things that I've discovered. I found out earlier they had discovered before I did. So it was only fascinating to see that. And the younger guy that was with him, and I do not recall his name, but they really have uncovered a lot. This is one thing that I was fascinated.
Why did it have to be that mountain?
And he's talking about Mount Graham, and he's going to be talking about the Hopi Indians as well and what they believed about it.
Now, we came to learn another thing, and that is that the San Carlos Apache have these preserved ancient tales concerning Mount Graham and that geography, including stories very similar to biblical chronology. These legends involve a creator, a deceiving dragon that follows, an epic flood, and even a race of giants known as the Jindupids, who were judged and destroyed by God. According to the legend, a race of Indians called the Tartans lived in the valley between Tucson and Phoenix. These were just peaceful farmers, and they prospered until one day they were invaded by the Jindupids, described as Goliaths, who were so huge they used tree limbs for toothpicks. Well, these Nephilim were led by this massive man they call Evil Ken, who allegedly came from the northeast and were headed south to their home beyond the Gulf of Baja. These giants nearly wiped out the Tartans before they ran and hid themselves underground and in the mountains and prayed to Father Sun, who then threw this huge fireball that came down to the earth, seared the monstrous Nephilim into the scorched mountain rock, and wiped them out. Now, elements of that tale are obviously mythological, but it has a remarkable thematic coherence with Genesis chapter 6. There's a dragon with the power of speech that turns up, bargaining with mankind, as well as supernatural gateways associated with mountains through which spirit beings have and can come. So suffice it to say that these ancient native ideas involving flying discs, flying creators, spirit guides, even owls and a talking dragon or a great serpent,
Let me get that one.
And supernatural gate.
And this great serpent and this dragon, things like that he says in this interview here, and this is part of these Indian traditions. Very fascinating, especially if you begin to look even at the Colburn writings here in chapter 3, for example, and the end of chapter 2. It reads here, where is there a wiser father than the spirit God or a better mother than the earth? That's not what I wanted to read. And by the way, keep in mind, I do not look at these as biblical documents. I'm looking at the similarities in the writings that you have in these books here. And of course, some of these folklore, the Indian tales, things like that. I do believe, though, and I'll always stand for this here, for the Native American people here. They were definitely done wrong by the white man when he came to this nation. Instead of bringing kindness and goodness and everything, he just came in here and took over the land and moved them to their little concentration camps that they put them on. I think that's a horrible thing. Anyway, right here in chapter 3, it is known and the story comes down from ancient times that there was not one creation, but two, a creation and a recreation. It is a fact known to the wise that the earth was utterly destroyed once, then reborn on a second wheel of creation. Now, biblically, we would look at that as God creating the heavens and the earth and everything living on it until Noah's time. And then the great flood came, wiped everything off, and everything started over again. Now, oddly enough, there are those that believe that the passing of Planet X, which happens according to different theories there, but according to some, like that of the Chilean astronomer, he also said that it comes by every 3,600 years, I believe is the way he put that there on his side there. Says that anyway, at the time of the great destruction of earth, God caused a dragon from out of heaven to come and encompass her about. The dragon was frightful to behold. It lashed its tail, it breathed out fire, hot coals, and great catastrophe was inflicted upon mankind. The body of the dragon was wreathed in cold, bright light, and beneath the belly was a ruddy-hued glow, while behind it trailed a flowing tail of smoke. It spewed out cinders and hot stones, and its breath was foul and stenchful, poisoning the nostrils of men. And of course, this being just given in an analogy, but according to what we understand when you go to study about this Planet X theory, there is that the way it comes through is like a dragon. It comes through and it puts out this sulfur that comes upon the earth. It's also what there's one thing, I think because the iron core of this system, it turns the water to like blood red because the iron that it releases is just a horrifying thing to begin with. But I get into these things just to kind of show you some of the similarities, but then also uh, to take a serious look at some of the prophecies, even like of the Hopi, etc. We'll play a little bit of this here and try to connect some of these dots. May not be doing it the best way that I should be doing it, but at least try to share some of this information with you. Let's listen in here.
Like me. Oh, 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 oh,
You, but if you're listening to that and you remember some of the old gospel hymns, that reminds me that hymn follows nearly verbatim. I once was blind, see. So just in case you notice. I've already come. And again, I don't say that's what he's saying, but it's what it sounds, it reminds me of.
The work is done, and then somebody might go in there someday, in the old Hopi way. Hopi means peace, kind, gentle. Our mission is to hold this land in life according to the law of the Great Spirit. We are the original native people holding this land in life in balance through prayer, meditation, ceremony, and taking care of all these animal, birds, and plant life. We live with them. We take whatever with prayer, with the ceremonies.
And the thing is just to kind of give you a little bit of background about how even the Native Americans, they have not embraced much of technology. I mean, of course, they have. I mean, I guess we could even say, on some of the tribal lands, they go out and they get into the uh, what do you call those things there where they do the gambling and stuff like that, sadly enough. And I'm sure there's many Native Americans that don't want any of that, but it's just something that has been permitted. But in some of the traditions, of course, this man here, if I'm not mistaken, passed away in 1999. But let's get into more, though, of a couple of things here. One, I wanted to share also a Genesis here. This is Nimrod, where we speak of in chapter 11 here. They said one to another, "Come, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly." And that they had brick for stone and slime, and they for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build us a city and a tower with its top in heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is what they begin to do. And now nothing will be withholden from them which they purpose to do." And I kind of always held to the belief that that tower that they're talking about making was not is what we would think, but it had the ability to be able to peer into another dimension. So when he talks about building it up, a city and a tower which its top is in heaven, I feel like they were literally looking for this tower to reach another dimension, another gateway, you might say. Now, and I hope there's so much I put together here, and trying to remember it all is not easy. But I want to share some other things here with you here on and to see if we can't put some pieces together. And also, although some of this is about UFO technology, former Pentagon UFO investigator makes claims of non-human craft, biological implants, and memoir. I'm looking, and let me see if I find the right one here. Vatican holds press conference on apparitions and other supernatural phenomena. The thing I want to build here for you is how that the Vatican is not limited to the sciences that we think they are. In fact, in some of the notes that I put together here, one of the things I have here, one of the oldest astronomical research institutes in the world, originally founded in 1582 by Pope Gregory the 13th to reform the calendar. And the modern Vatican Observatory sits atop Mount Graham in Arizona, and a site considered sacred by Native American tribes, which raised questions about its esoteric purpose. The telescope there is named Lucifer, which again, it makes you think of the great dragon that's written about in the in the in the I get my brain mixed up here. Give me 1 second here. In the Colburn, I don't like calling it a Bible, and maybe that's why my brain is mixed up. I don't want to call it a Bible, but in the Colburn document, they actually write in there about this dragon coming, which we know that Lucifer is referred to in our Bible as the dragon or the great serpent. He is called in the scripture. The telescope there is named Lucifer, an acronym for a large monocular telescope, near infrared utility, etc., which sparked conspiracy theories about deep space observation tied to spiritual or dimensional entities. This is the reason why I figure either the Vatican has figured out a way scientifically, like that of the Hadron Collider in Switzerland there, CERN, they've either figured out a way to break into a portal and be able to view into space there, or is it a possibility they're using some form of a remote viewing technique, or is it because it is a gateway that when they're observing at certain points in time, are they able to see into the ether, and therefore that's why they know when this thing is coming? And we'll get into some other things that the Vatican has invented as well, looking back, peering in time, both forward and backwards there. Some people believe it's just a conspiracy theory, but I have a feeling it's not. So one of the things that I'd heard from insiders is that it was not a conspiracy theory. They really did have that type of a device. But I also was told how they got it, and it's not exactly with what people think. The Jesuits are historically among the most scientifically trained and philosophically informed of Catholic orders. As you saw, the one guy said he was a Jesuit. Many prominent Jesuit priests were astronomers, mathematicians, physicists, some involved in quantum theory and metaphysics. Jesuits' involvement in the CERN project, home of the Large Hadron Collider, has also been speculated, though unofficially. Think about that. They are speculated to be involved, but it's unofficial. I forget which video is which. Let me real quick take a look and see. We'll just have to take a shot at it because I don't recall. Let me see where we're at here.
That's UFO.
Okay, that one was not so much an issue for me there. Let's see if it was this one. Oh, you know what? Okay, let me skip ahead. No, it's the article in here, I believe is what it is. Okay, Vatican to hold press conference on apparitions and other supernatural phenomena. Okay, I think I never doubled back to this one is what it was. Let me jump over here to this one.
Related to this issue does exist in the Vatican Library. They can't prove that for obvious reasons, but I think the odds are highly favorable that, in fact, the Catholic Church does have a lot of information in their library, which they will eventually, I believe, at some point share with us. There are hints about, how would you say, events and so forth going back hundreds of years that have turned up in various paintings and so forth. But in terms of direct information regarding some sort of interaction between the Catholic Church and the subject of the modern era, which is the extraterrestrial presence, I'm not aware of it. There is recently, and I think I know why this story is sort of in play, is that when David Grush came forward to Ross Coulthart and eventually spoke or testified under oath to a House Senate subcommittee, subcommittee, he mentioned, I believe, a possible event that occurred back in 1933, well predating the Roswell event. And I think there's been a little bit of coverage of that. I think the information that is available is highly limited. So it certainly hasn't been established to my satisfaction. But part of the story is that there eventually this vehicle that might have been attained during the time of Mussolini was eventually gotten to the United States with the assistance of the Catholic Church.
And that's talking about where the Vatican gets a hold of extraterrestrial vehicles, things like that. One of the things I've heard too, and that was from a Pentagon insider, is that yes, they've given us extraterrestrial bodies to be able to do autopsies on, things like that, things that just would blow you away. But the Chronovisor is one of the ones that spark a lot of interest with people. And a lot of people think that the Chronovisor is well, they think it's just a hoax, but it's not. One of the things that I was always told is that that is really true. Now, the reason why I bring this in, I want to share with you some of these things here, is because the Vatican has a lot of control, a lot of scientists, and it's just to show you the capabilities and the technology that is believed that they actually have.
Even know about? Well, according to an Italian priest, a team of top scientists, and a handful of conspiracy theorists, such a device did exist. It was called the Chronovisor, and it might just be the most dangerous piece of technology never revealed to the public. But was it real? Or was it an elaborate hoax designed to mislead? And if it did exist, was it destroyed, hidden away, or even still in use today? Now, this is a fascinating story, and it's one of my favorites. If true, it has so many connotations and implications for us all. Just imagine. So, let's jump in. Origins of the Chronovisor. A priest, a physicist, and a Nazi scientist walk into a church. The story of the Chronovisor starts with Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine monk, a respected exorcist, and apparently a man with connections to some of the greatest scientific minds of the 20th century. But Ernetti wasn't just a religious scholar. He was also a physicist and a musician, specializing in archaic music theory and the study of sound waves. His interest in the hidden frequencies of the universe, he claimed, led him to something far greater than just lost music. It led him to a machine that could see into the past. In the 1950s, Ernetti claimed that he'd been part of a secret Vatican project to construct a device that could view and even record history as it happened. He wasn't alone. He said this project involved Enrico Fermi, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist who built the first nuclear reactor. Werner von...
Notice that, and I've got to sped up a little bit because I'm running into all kinds of, those things where they say that you're playing things you're not supposed to. Mr. Braun, he was a physicist. We had the other scientists early on that he showed on here as well, who I forget what his background was, but they come together, these scientists, and they figure out that in the ether, everything, all the vibrations and everything are already there.
Braun, the former Nazi rocket scientist who helped the US get to the moon. Now, Fermi and von Braun were brilliant men, but why would they...
Von Braun and these two scientists come together. As he said, the one actually helped us get to the moon.
Involved in a Vatican-funded project to build a time-viewing device. It seems outlandish until you consider that both men were deeply interested in energy, waves, and radiation, all of which played a crucial role in Ernetti's theory. According to Ernetti, the Chronovisor was not a time machine in the sense of allowing physical travel. Instead, it worked like a super TV that could tune into the electromagnetic imprints of past events. Sort of like a cosmic CCTV footage. Every sound, every image, every moment in history, he suggested, leaves behind an energy signature. The Chronovisor supposedly allowed...
And the funny thing is when they talk about this type of technology, you can go back to beliefs in the Far East, and they also claimed, and this is going back into the late 1800s, they believed that mankind would develop the technology to be able to pick up the literal voices of even Jesus from the past. Imagine that. Because as they said, the sound waves of your voice still echo, and they are still going, like dropping a rock into the water, and the wave continues on, but even though the wave dissipates out of your sight, it still continues. But the thing is, if the Vatican learned how to be able to pull this together, if this Chronovisor really does exist, and according to Pentagon Insider, I was told that yes, it does, and that still they have it, and it said, I've even heard that they tried to change some of the events. I don't know how they would do that, or in order to try to alter the possibilities that our future would change, but they keep coming up with the same future no matter which way they try to turn it. So, nonetheless, these are all theoretical, they're all speculative. I get that. But my question is how far advanced did they learn in their science that may have given them the ability to know when this planet X is really coming?
Its users to decode those signals and watch history unfold as if it was still happening in real time. But if this device truly existed, why would the Vatican bury its existence? And more importantly, what did they see that made them so desperate to keep it hidden? All right, let's pause here for a second. We're being told that a monk worked with some of the biggest names in physics and rocketry to build a Vatican-sponsored time television. And this isn't just some random basement scientist. This is Enrico Fermi, a guy literally responsible for...
All right. Think about it, though, too. Because, like, some people might think, well, that couldn't really be done. How do we manage to television? Okay, if you're young today, you probably don't remember the old days when we actually had TVs where you could even have a battery operated TV where it's not connected to any electrical outlets. It would have a little set of what we called rabbit ear antennas sitting on top. You could turn the TV on, and through the air, it would pick up a signal coming through the air that was a both a radio and a televised wave. And then it would go inside of this box. It had all these little tubes and stuff. In the old days, we had tubes in a TV. And it would reconstruct that picture that it was picking up in the air, basically decoding that information traveling through the air and create a picture on the screen. Well, if science can figure out how to do that just from the natural air, just like in the case of talking on your telephone today, your telephone is not connected to anything. It's only connected to the Wi-Fi signal coming off of a 5G tower. We already know that can be used as a weapon, but nonetheless, what does it do? You speak inside of here, there is a vibration that goes out of this phone through the air, catches that tower sends the vibration of your voice to another tower, wherever, whatever, how many towers it takes to get to the person on the other end that knows where that other person's phone signal is pinging at, and then you hear the voice of that person. You could even do a FaceTime picture and also do the exact same thing. Well, if man could figure that out, why can't he figure out the vibrations that are traveling within the ether? So how far-fetched would that be?
Splitting the atom. If that's true, it raises massive questions. Why? I mean, was the Vatican trying to check if Jesus really walked on water, or were they betting on 1950s horse races? But let's assume for a second that they really did build this thing. How exactly did it work? How the Chronovisor allegedly worked. So, how does a time television actually work? Anetti claimed that every event in history leaves behind energy traces, waves of electromagnetic, radiation and sound vibrations that never fully disappear. These remnants of the past, he suggested, still exist, scattered across the universe like echoes waiting to be retrieved. The Chronovisor, through a mix of quantum physics, advanced acoustics, and obscure theology, could tune into these signals and reconstruct historical events in real time. Think of it like this. Instead of radio waves, the universe is constantly broadcasting the past, and the Chronovisor was an antenna and decoder designed to pick up those transmissions. It supposedly worked using a series of exotic alloy antennas and cathode ray screens, allowing its...
Now, of course, they do claim later that they actually saw the real crucifixion. And I've actually heard that before from people that... And not only were they able to pick up those events and those signals of Jesus at his crucifixion, they take and allegedly took a picture of what they saw and then printed a picture of it. Well, ended up being a hoax because it mirrored a picture of Jesus that was in one of their Vatican archive pictures in another church or something like that, another Catholic church somewhere along the way. Well, I think that they did that intentionally because they wanted you to believe that the Catholic Church was spot on how Jesus really looked. Although they didn't bet on the fact that somebody knew that that picture existed somewhere. Now, whether or not they really did see Jesus at the crucifixion, I believe that they very well could have. But would they really release the real picture of what he looked like? No, I wouldn't think so, especially if their idea and conception of the way he looked totally had nothing to do with what they thought. Something worth noting anyway, right? But the thing is, all this does is it helps to establish the technology. But there's another side to this as well that we've got to consider. And before we get into that, let me just show you one other thing from Pope Pius XII here. Said after Mussolini became prime minister in 1922, he was eager to cement his power on an absolute dictatorship and one party state. And I forget why I put this in here. Oh, never mind. We don't need to go in. It's just as when the Vatican lost its sovereignty and then it got its sovereignty back. That doesn't really matter. So anyway, we talked about Stefan Burns and how these different things are happening on the earth that's causing all kind of problems. But then there's another side to this as well. And oh, by the way, this is where they have this Mills hole on this guy's property that is so dead gum deep, they believe this thing goes all the way to inner earth. One thing I will tell you for sure, though, if you ever listening into this, maybe we should play a little clip of this, though. This does debunk the idea that the earth is made the way we have thought it is. Oh, just a little thin outer layer, and then there's this, and then it goes to melting lava, and then to a core in the middle, all that kind of stuff. Listen to a little bit of this here, real quick, just to debunk that. And it does matter. And the reason it's going to matter is because besides the fact of Planet X coming, we have to remember the Bible says that what was this, you know, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. When we look at all the events that are supposed to happen here, we do have a place in the book of Malachi. And this is why I want to bring this up here. Because in the book of Malachi, Malachi talks about there coming this day, this very day that will bring about a judgment that is going to be absolutely hideous. It's supposed to be the judgment of all judgments. And as we see that day coming, by the way, there's only 3 chapters in the Hebrew version. It does match up with the English version. It's just the fact that they don't include chapter 4 as a separate chapter. I get it, though, why the Christians would do so, because in verse 19, which would be chapter 4, verse 1 of the King James Version, it's because there comes that day that's going to burn as a furnace, and all the proud and all that work wickedness shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall set them ablaze, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall leave them neither root nor branch. I believe that the root in this case here is the fact is we have read so much in the New Testament where John says that every tree that does not bring forth good fruit, which are the branches on the tree, which are the individuals, that doesn't bring good fruit, it needs to be hewed down and cast into the fire. Jesus talks about the root quite frequently in the New Testament, that whatever is in that root, that's what will produce on the tree. So the ones that are doing evil or have a very bad root, and not only are they going to be destroyed, so are the branches, so are the people that are a part of that root, which I do believe has more to do with the reptilian race that is on this planet to begin with. But in you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, not its, it does say his in the Hebrew language, and you shall go forth and gamble as calves of the stall. You shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I do make, saith the Lord of hosts. I don't want to be on the surface of the earth when he's burning it off, but nonetheless, he says, we will walk across the ashes of those there. Remember the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded in them all for all Israel, even the statutes and ordinances. Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. That's not John the Baptist, although Jesus does say John was that Elijah of his day. And Jesus does even reckon the fact that Elijah of his day did turn the heart of the fathers to the children. But he never credits turning the heart of the children to their fathers to John, lest I come and smite the land with utter destruction. So, just like it was in the days of Jonah, we know that the earth is going to be cleaned off this time with fire. And when we look at what these The Colburn document writes about the passing of Planet X. We kind of have that idea. I think the Vatican is trying to get a heads up on this because there are many traditions, like in the Hopi, that they went into inner Earth. But it's not just that. We also read in the book of Joel this prophecy that says, blow you the horn in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh, where it is at hand. A day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, as blackness spread upon the mountains. That's just like what we read earlier here when we're looking at the Colburn document here, where it says here, at the time of the great destruction of the earth, caused the dragon from heaven to come and compass her about, and the dragon was frightful to behold, and his lashed its tail, and breath of fire and coal and great catastrophe was inflicted upon mankind. The body of the dragon was wreathed in coal bright light beneath on the belly. There is a place in here, and I forget exactly where it's at, but it goes into the fact of the darkness and everything else. When you read in depth to it, you'll see all of that. I'm just reading a little tiny clip of it, although the Colburn also writes about what it's going to be like when it comes that next time around as well, and it's not very pleasant. Anyway, a great people and a mighty there hath not ever been the like, neither shall be any more hereafter them, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame blazeth, and the land is a garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. That's just like what Tom Horton speaks about over here in this documentary film here when he talks about that. Let's just back up just a little bit to it, right? Let's see, maybe I went too far back.
Or of speech that turns up, bargaining with mankind, as well as supernatural gateways associated with mountains through which spirit beings have and can come. So suffice it to say that these ancient native ideas involving flying discs, flying creators, bargain creator, the one who lives above. Now, besides this creator who rides in a heavenly disc, and then the legend starts, before noting that suddenly from the darkness emerged a disc. One side of it was yellow, the other side of it was...
That goes into a little bit different there as far as some kind of like alien spacecraft. But the other thing is that he talks about in there how that at one point they the Earth to hide, to try to get away from this thing. That kind of reminds me too of the Bible where it says man would hide himself in the dens of the earth and then cry for the rocks and the mountains to fall on them and say, hide us from the presence of him that is to come. So anyway, so we go on and we continue on with this here, but these beings who remember you the law of oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong book there. So they come, and it says the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so do they run. So whatever these beings are like, they're as big as a horse, but they run like a man on two legs. So imagine a horse on his hind legs standing up. Can you imagine how tall that creature would be, a horse standing on his hind legs? I mean, think about it. A horse, if you're standing next to a horse and his head's already taller than yours in a lot of cases there, you might be 6 foot. The horse is probably standing there on 4 legs. He's 6'4" or something like that. Now take his body and rear him up, and then he's way up. He's got to be 8, 9 foot tall. And that's what's supposed to be coming on this earth to bring about a judgment, right? Like a noise of chariots on the tops of mountains do they leap, and like noise of the flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a mighty people settle in battle array. At the presence of the people are in anguish. Remember the scripture that says, those things that are coming out on the earth will cause man's hearts to fail for fear. This one here, at their presence, the peoples are in anguish. All faces have gathered blackness. That's like the life of you just goes right out of you to just see them. They run like mighty men. They climb like the wall like men of war. They break through. Let's see. Neither doth, this is one that gets me. Neither doth one thrust another. They march every one in his own highway. They break through the weapons and suffer no harm. And the King James says they fall upon a spear and are not wounded. if you think about it too with a reptilian, and we know that there is a reptilian entities that they claim that these evil entities are here, and this is what this planet is. It's a different form of the reptilians. I forget what they call those guys there, but that's what's supposed to be on this planet X. But the reptilians themselves, they claim that they're 8, 9 foot tall. You heard what Colonel Gregg said, right? But think about it. And Gregg has said it's nearly impossible to kill one of these things. Nearly impossible. And on top of that, if you think about a reptile can cut off the tail of a lizard and the thing will grow a tail back again. Gregg made a comment to me one time because I had that dream vision, whatever you want to call this giant serpent that was coming after me. The first time it come past me, I wounded it by striking it in the side of the face with a dagger. And then I heard a voice speak to me and say, he will be more vicious than he was when he returns the second time. And when he did, I mounted the serpent. It was big enough to be like a horse. That's the weird thing. I was riding it like a horse, and yet Joel describes these, and these are supposed to be the judgment ones that come upon the earth. But remember, God also used Babylon to judge Israel for what they did too. It doesn't necessarily take a good thing to be able to bring judgment. It could be a bad thing to bring judgment. So just keep that thought in mind. But what happened? In that vision, I had to jump on that thing, and then I began to whacking at his head, and God said to me in the vision, cut his head off. That's how you'll kill him. And that's exactly what Gregg told me. He said, these reptilians, if you don't behead them, they will regrow back whatever you want. Before them, the earthquake, the heaven, right before them. Lifneav. Okay? That's, in other words, that's before he even gets here. The earth quaketh, the heavens tremble, the sun and the moon are become black, and the stars withdraw their shining. That's what happens just before they get here. Now, let's take another look here. Ariel Sadak. How many of you guys remember me talking about Ariel here? Many times, right? Let's play a little clip of Ariel.
Because he's halfway on the other side of the galaxy, and all that was there was his projected body. If you haven't seen the film, if you want to see this portrayed, that's a great example of what it's like.
By the way, his voice is off on his video.
Or something fantasaical. The Gemara tells us something really bizarre. That Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the famous author of the...
I won't play the whole thing. I'll leave a description here, or leave this in the description for you. In a document that he writes on here, kind of got it in this one part here. I want you to be able to see here. He said, the Zohar says that many who escaped the destruction of the Tower of Babel did so by relocating to inner earth. Inner earth has long been said to be the domain of the fallen angels in the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis 6. That's fascinating that he says that, because right on my channel, I did not know this when I did this video here, but right there on the channel where I did this video here are the fallen angels on earth, and over 1 million views here. And this is where I suggest that they're in inner earth, and we're in prison in Antarctica. Fascinating to say. Anyway, inner earth is said to also be the domain of many animals, which we have long considered to be mythological, such as unicorn, phoenix, and the minotaur, and the centaur and dragon. Inner earth inhabitants are said to come in many different shapes and sizes, from what we would call giants and the likes would call hobbits. Indeed, there is even said to be the head of a two-headed human being. All these things are proclaimed by our sages to be physically real. And the Zohar states that the Garden of Eden is a real physical place existing in inner earth. Right? This is some of the things he says. But he really gives some crazy thoughts too. I'll play this clip for you here from when he was on the History Channel.
Skills that they would return in the future. Tradition tells us that the army of the Messiah is not to come from heaven, but is to arise from inner earth, and therefore dominate the surface world.
So the armies of heaven are going to come from inner earth. And let me just show you this one little clip here, because that then it's going to show you a rep.
Perhaps we are now at this.
There you go. Another clip here.
To the Garden of Eden, which exists in inner earth. But here's the interesting question. A garden in a cave doesn't work like that. Gardens have plant life that grows, requires sun. But in inner earth, there's an inner sun.
Good Adam and Eve have lived in a...
So you have all these clips here that do that. And of course, the other thing that I think that is very important is, as we go back, these that will accompany with the passing of this binary system. I don't understand, though, why the Vatican is so caught up in wanting to know about this, or at least why they're not even willing to share it. Could it be that they really have a deeper connection with these entities that are coming? It certainly seems that the Hopi nations there would not be so suppressed as they are if there was a genuine desire to try to be of some sort of help to them. But that does not seem to be the case. And by the way, the Hopi is a word for peace in their language there. But none. It is at Mount Graham where the Vatican has their Lucifer telescope. And I do believe that if they could make a chronovisor, the Vatican also has a way, because remember, the chronovisor does pick up the ripples in the ether. And they were able to see both past and future. Are they able to see this thing coming with the chronovisor itself? And if so, did they also learn a technology that is given them to know when Planet X is really coming? I was told that most likely the Vatican will share it with the Russians before they will share it with us. I wonder why. And that might explain, too, why we see with this technology that we see, for example, with when you look at the technology that is coming out from, say this, when we look at this interesting technology that they have, and that they are designing all these devices, they're not, or I'm sorry, when we look at the, lost my train of thought for just a second there. I'm actually thinking about the Silk Road initiative. And the Silk Road doesn't have anything to do with the United States. Now, maybe they've included it since we've made so much fuss over it now, but if you go back to all the old diagrams, it doesn't include that. And then again, why is Russia so caught up, as well as the United States, for being able to control that northern North Pole region there, and Russia talking about that being a future trade route? They know this Earth's going to tilt off its axis as well. Although it's been moving already, what's going to really cause it to take that great dive, that sudden change? Maybe it is the coming of Planet X. I'm Stephen Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live on our Patreon channel. Thank you for bearing with me through this long video here, and I hope it blesses many of you. Thank you.